help me in welcoming Ginny Seyferth.
I think, can you hear me okay? Yeah? Okay. I usually don't even need a microphone. I yell at kids all the time, so it's no. Thank you, Dan. And I will give you a little bit of background on ArtPrize and give you some of that at the end. But I wouldn't be in the public relations business for 30 years if I didn't take a minute and teach you a little bit about public relations. So I'm just curious, how many of you could get up here, and I apologize because I'm an adjunct professor a lot in public relations programs around the country. So how many of you could really tell me the difference between public relations and advertising? Raise your hand. Okay, what do you think?
Advertising is repetition and sales, and public relations is telling the story behind the company, the product, and service.
Okay, good, very good. Others, anybody else? Do you know it, or are you not really sure that there's a little bit of that integration of communications going on? What do you think? Not really sure, okay. Well, I'm going to take you through just a little bit. Thanks, Scott, I didn't even plant you in there. But I am going to take you through just a little bit because it's an opportunity for me to really help you understand and distinguish how important it is to integrate communication. And I will share with you that for those of you who are advertising based, most of our clients have an ad agency and a public relations firm. We do very different things, but we integrate all the time. And I think probably the most exciting part about my career right now is that the social platforms that we all live in today's world are allowing us to kind of see it all work together much faster. I would be wrong if I didn't tell you that I would encourage you all, because most of the time if you go to the Econ Club, they tell you to put your phone away and turn it off. I'm going to tell you to follow Seyferth PR on Twitter. And we are tweeting from this event. Chris is here. And you may also jump on Pageworks to help them build some of their platform. And I will show you a video later today that you can download or grab off YouTube, but it's also on Seyferth PR's Facebook, so if you want to use it, it's something that many companies in West Michigan are using now to introduce the market, so we'll talk about that. Okay, so let me just give you a little bit of kind of teacher definition here, and I tried to pull out some words so you could see. But public relations is really two-way. It's really I always tell people that it's the relationship that you have with your publics. It's not really the sale, it's not really the product, but it's the relationship. And I want you to just think about relationships, because in today's techno world, we sort of forget about the importance of a relationship. And do I understand it? And do I trust you? And where is your trust bank made up of? And how do we get along? Okay? And please remember that I'm also going to share with you that when I started in public relations, I am a Grand Valley grad. Do we have any of those? I know we have one. Go Lakers. And I actually left the University of Michigan to come to Grand Valley when it was only 4,000 students. So, but I do need to share with you that when I started in public relations, there was no social. There wasn't even computers. I still have a typewriter. And it's really important for you to realize that public relations hasn't changed. The platforms and how we communicate and the speed that we communicate from has changed. So I did share with you, wait, can I go back? No, I can't, sorry. How come I can't go back? Sorry, I want to go back to here. Got it, there we go. So I just so you compare and contrast, go down to the bottom and stay with me, because PR doesn't really look at the needs and the product needs that marketing and advertising have to understand. We really are the relationship with the people. and the relationship. And this is, I think, really the key difference that people don't understand. It isn't that I don't also understand the product. I have to understand the business of the organization that I'm working with. But I'm really, really concerned, and our focus is really exclusively dedicated to the publics that the organization serves. So let me go through with you a little. Let me see if I can do this. Okay, so who's a public? It changes all the time, but it always includes almost first and foremost your employees. I know people would normally say the customers, but really, again, as I build relationships, as I build that trust, it usually starts with your employees. The community in which you serve is also a public, could be local schools, could be the local government. It will then, of course, always include your shareholders, whether it's just a small group if you're privately held, or if you have if you happen to be a public company, the shareholders often even come before the employees. And then you can get into your customers. But I tell you that because if you ever go into a company that treats its employees poorly, you feel it. Do I see anybody nod? Yes? Do you ever go into a place when everybody's just really pissed off? And do you really want to do business there? Right? So again, if a company looks at public relations in its full scale, it's going to start with its employees. It's going to really have that Disney feeling. I think right now, and it's amazing that I can tell you this, but I think Delta Airlines is doing a magnificent job with its employees right now. I would never say that because I used to think, oh my gosh, why do I have to get out of Grand Rapids this way? But they are doing a magnificent job rethinking how they develop relationships. And instead of focusing on the customers first, they're focusing on the comfort and the confidence and the idea of their employees is being ambassadors of their brand. Okay, so if you start with your employees, guess what? You usually get better production. You usually have a less stoppage of workforce or any kind of a labor issue. And most of all, happy employees usually make happy customers. Okay, so again, way before the product gets launched, our interest is really who are your publics and how do they fit into this whole thing. A question I get all the time is, well, isn't the media a public? Well, the media is a tool. The media is, really mediums include everything that Pageworks makes. They are tools. MLive is a great tool. NBC is a great tool. This morning, if you watched Squawk Box, you saw Huntington Bank's expansion and the CEO as a great tool, sharing it. First it broke at Wall Street Journal's website, then it went on to Squawk Box, and then it went nationwide. So those are all tools. They're ways that I reach you. Facebook is a tool. Twitter is a tool. This printed pamphlet is a tool. So think of it that way, where the media really doesn't manage your message, but they help you disseminate your message. And they help you communicate to your different publics. Can I get here? Another thing that I would be remiss if I didn't share with you is that public relations started a long time ago. And I like to tell the story of Thomas Paine. I loved history when I was in school. Anybody know who Thomas Paine is? Okay, good. If you didn't, Google him and you can find out. But Thomas Paine wrote a pamphlet. He literally was sort of a propagandist in many ways. And he wrote a pamphlet that really kind of sold the people in America, against what was going on in the ideology of England. And he did it anonymously. So it was sort of like, he just kind of created this conversation and really created a dialogue where people could say, oh my gosh, maybe they're right. He raised questions. Very important if you think about iJournalism today, which we were talking about, is is really, it's a throwback to how we used to communicate, because we didn't have formal methods of communication in the way that we have today, but we still could influence public opinion. And Thomas Paine was a brilliant influencer of public opinion. So these colonies of ours could have an opinion on maybe they could stand up against the king. And even before that, I'll share with some other history notes for you, but I like to say ArtPrize is great, but the Boston Tea Party was even a better event. So I want you to think about that. Here we had this opportunity, again, to change American history with an event, okay? Taxation without representation. We all know the slogan. But really, it was the staging of something that got everyone's attention so that public opinion and that trust bank of conversation could happen, and then the world would change. So it can be done on a very little level, but that relationship, the power of the trust bank, the power of people talking and building relationships and confidence among each other is just absolutely something that can completely turn a market in a minute. I still didn't get my clicker, did I? If I fast forward, and actually I want to go back one. Can I go back one? Sorry. There we go. I like to say that the internet is a lot like ancient Egypt, and this is something that you can all laugh about, but if you really think about it, just pause a minute. Do you agree with me? Right? So it's really the same thing. Again, just fast forward. It's faster, it's technology, but nothing's really changed. We are still managing communication and shaping public opinion through relationships and ideas. The challenge that we have today is that if we do this, life can change at the speed of lightning. And that's where I think you get into, I got it? The opportunity of something as interesting as young people getting together in Tiananmen Square. I mean, look what happened. Think of, and many of you in the room are probably much younger to think about this, but again, I want you to go back and realize that it was the staging of an event that changed our relationship and how we know China today forever. It was the staging of an event in Boston. It was the conversation of many people that said, together, we can have a lot of power in changing the way that we live. And again, Time Magazine really didn't cover China prior to that event. But then all of a sudden, a week later, the world had to look at China from a different perspective. If I fast forward, we also, does anyone know what this little picture begins to tease you with? Yeah, okay, so if you look at this little picture and how it went out on Facebook and Twitter, so it was able to prevent the government from knowing what was going on. I think I'll go this way. Then what happened? Social media was the platform by which the young people were able to overthrow the government of Egypt. So the power, no different than Thomas Paine, just fast forward to today's world, different medium. It wasn't a brochure or a pamphlet. In fact, there are accounts of how long it took Thomas Paine, who didn't know Pageworks, to print his material, his pamphlets. So if you fast forward, you can see the power of people getting together where communication happens. It's two-way, it's sharing of ideas, and then it is managing that communication to shape and change public opinion that really wraps in the whole concept of public relations. So because Dan mentioned it, do you remember that picture? Okay. Let me give you just a quick background. I think I'll save that for the end, because that picture went all over the place. And then do you remember this picture? And somebody's crazy idea of dropping it on social media, which wasn't really that social during our first year of ArtPrize, just so you know. But what was this picture all about? 100,000 paper airplanes, 1 o'clock on Sunday afternoon. That was the only thing that was put out. And look what happened. Look at the hundreds of thousands of people who jammed the bathrooms at the art museum, and then after. And then from there, can I get it? Oops, I went too far, sorry. Came this, New York Times. What the heck was going on in Grand Rapids, Michigan? And I will share with you just a quick overview so you begin to understand how all of this happens, and then I'm going to take you through it. So Dan was right about our conversation with one thing. There was a tremendous amount of work, but it was 2 months, not 2 years, that we had to get ready to launch ArtPrize. Only because we were working with a 28-year-old genius. If he had been 38, it would have been 2 years. But he was 28, so it was 2 months. Okay? And so as Dan was sharing with you, and as I shared with Scott and Dan, before we were able to get this, what we needed to do was to do 4 things. The first was research. And let me just share, and then I will take you through this deeper. But when we did research, we had to figure out who would be trusted to be credible, okay? So who would be trusted to be credible to tell you about this thing in Grand Rapids, Michigan that would encourage you to leave your home country of Poland and pack up and bring art. And if we announced it in April, you would be here with your art by September. Just think about that for a minute. Who would be credible? So we developed, again, often public relationships and managing that starts with research that then helps you understand who are the publics that you can trust to tell the story, right? So how many of you have kids? Oh, good. How many of you often look and say, ooh, that's a really good teacher, or I really want my son or daughter to listen to that person. They're a really good role model. So, do you all know good role? Whether it's a teacher or a sports person or something, we all look for people that can influence our kids besides us. Maybe they share values. Maybe they're just, they're just a really good person that you want your kids to know when they're growing up. Well, really, again, public relations is no different. We often start with research that really allows us to understand who are those good mentors, who are those gatekeepers of information that I can trust. And with ArtPrize, we did that. And I'm going to come back to that thinking in just a minute, because I want to keep you going on just some other things that begin to change perception. How many of you guys were at the chicken thing? We did get a world record for Laughfest by the most rubber chickens in the world. Who cares, right? Well, it got like 1 million social media hits. So there was a reason to care. Now, what does Laughfest have to do with kids and people dealing with cancer? Does anybody know? Anybody have any idea? How many have been to Laughfest? How many have tickets to see anybody this year? Oh, wow, we got to do some work here, Natasha. Laughfest came out of the idea. How many know Gilda Radner from Saturday Night Live? She actually was better than Tina Fey and Sarah Palin. I hate to tell you this, but you really need to go back and see Gilda Radner. If you know Tina Fey today, you have to go back and look at Gilda Radner, because she really broke the cycle for women in comedy like there's no tomorrow. Well, so Gilda Radner was one of the very early pioneers on SNL, and she had ovarian cancer. And it was kind of one of those shh, don't talk about it eras. And she continued on television throughout her challenge of ovarian cancer. When she died, she left money to the idea of healing and humor. And she started in Texas and then a couple of other places. Grand Rapids now has one, a Gilda's House. You heard of Gilda's House? And Gilda's House is really kind of a central focal point to help people, the individuals themselves and their families, on the journey with cancer. And they also have a grief counseling center for children as part of it. Well, the local people here, not me, but a lot of the local board members of Gilda's House thought, you know, we ought to really illuminate this idea of humor that Gilda tried to add to this concept of healing, and how humor could really help individuals heal. So they came up with this idea called Laughfest, and it is a 10-day festival with about 60 to 70 different events, all about humor. It's done some really remarkable things for our city. Most important, here we were building this kind of medical hub in our city at the time. This was pre-DeVos Children's Hospital, about the time the Lax Cancer Center was going up. So Laughfest kind of came in the middle of all of that and said, I know we're trying to be really serious here, but we are also concerned about the healing of the human spirit. And we got to be able to do that through laughter. So 100% of the proceeds, if you buy a ticket, go to Gilda's House. And it is a major fundraiser, but really what it is, it's a major way to tell the world that in Grand Rapids, we're more than just pills and doctors and clinical experiments. We really are about the whole person and the healing of the person. So again, it was Gilda's way, Gilda's Club's way of building a relationship between patients and physicians and the clinical trial work and stuff within the community, but using laughter to bring it all together. So ArtPrize uses art to create a conversation, and maybe a few other things, a little different kinds of experiments in terms of where the art is. And Laughfest, you will see everything on the list if you Google Laughfest, from dog humor to kids humor to stuff that's R-rated to religious humor, and it's really great because it kind of shares a different conversation about our city as a backdrop as we were investing into healthcare and other things. So let me go through with you really quick, and I'll go quick on this. That process, research. I told you a little bit about the research that we did with ArtPrize. And what we ended up doing as we were putting this puzzle of ArtPrize together is we identified about 2,800 gatekeepers from around the world. Again, pre-social media, we got their emails. So how did we do that? We looked at people who owned galleries. We looked at professors of design schools from the Netherlands to Hong Kong. We looked at curators of art museums all over the globe. And we put together about 2,800 of those mentors of art, and they became the people that we talked to before we talked to the artist. So we explained ArtPrize to them first. So when this $500,000 prize was announced, people believed it. There was a conversation that it was already started. Curators were already saying, ooh, you should enter this. This is an idea for you. professors at colleges were already talking about it before the story broke. And then a really smart thing that Rick did was he invited some of the, what I would call the established curators to Grand Rapids for the first year. Why would you do that? I mean, we went to England, we went to MoMA in New York, we went to California. We invited some of the, you know, contemporary geeks of art here to see what was going on. Before ArtPrize opened, we invited them to be our guest in the city. Again, they were conversationalists. They were going to jump into this. They were going to have an opinion on, was that art? We got them discussing the idea of who was art? Who were the artists? Was it okay to do, you know, a table and chairs on a bridge and a dragon in the river? I mean, who was to agree or disagree? So we went after those who probably would have attacked ArtPrize first, sort of the gurus, and then brought them in, invited them in. We also did something that really has been just incredible. We did the resume of Grand Rapids and art. Does anybody ever think about the resume of Grand Rapids and art? So, Calder. This big orange thing that we look at. Does anyone know that that was the first investment of public art where the National Organization of Art in Washington gave dollars to cities to place public art? Grand Rapids got one of those grants 40-some years ago, and it became one of the first displays of public art sculpture. That went on our resume. Perugino. Did anyone know that the Grand Rapids Art Museum hosted Perugino years ago? Incredible exhibition from Italy. That went on our resume. There was an exhibition called Sculpture Off the Pedestal, way before my time in Grand Rapids, but it was pretty funky, a little radical, made a lot of the art journals around the globe. That went on our resume. Kendall went on our resume. The fact that we were the home to Herman Miller and Hayworth and Steelcase and all these incredible designers went on our resume. Grand Valley's art department went on our resume. So when we went out to the world to talk about art, they didn't think we were just Grand Rapids. That's a church community. Trust me, I get that all the time. We went out and said, we have a resume of art. And so we didn't just have $500,000 to inspire you. We had a resume of art to say, wow, Alexander Calder's got a place there. And we used the Frederick Meyer Gardens. I mean, look at the sculptures at the Frederick Meyer Gardens. And if you haven't been to the Japanese garden, let me do a shout out to them too. One of the top visiting places in the state of Michigan this year. So you definitely should go see it. But the sculpture resume and the art resume that we had, none of us had it individually, but we were able to shape public opinion because we had it collectively. So the research was first. The next step was action. So, and if you don't know this, I am spelling out race. So if you want to write R-A-C-E, it will help you. The action step was pretty simple. We had to communicate, and again, no social media, so we used email. We did e-blasts at the time because social wasn't quite ready. And then we also had an action step where I like to say it was a little chaotic as Scott and Dan and I were talking, because texting was how you voted, and you had to be in the ArtPrize district in order to vote. Remember all those rules? Well, you probably at that time couldn't even imagine that we never even thought about until we started. How many people weren't able to text because they didn't have a Gmail account? Okay, wait, you gotta pull yourself backwards a little bit. When you know, don't put your iPhones away. This was, you know, we had a lot of those flip phones at the time. So immediately we realized that our audience, the public who was going to come to vote, needed to be able to sign in so they could vote, many of them. because many of their phones didn't text. So we ended up setting up at the Grand Rapids Public Library and other places all over the city, little places for people to set up a Gmail account. Can you imagine the busloads of senior citizens coming in wanting to vote? And we said, do you have a Gmail account? It was just like, we never even thought about the masses of people that couldn't vote until we set it up. About 37,000 Gmail accounts the first year. So I think we kind of raised the bar on technology and use of it just because of ArtPrize. Wasn't planned, but you know, sometimes the action step takes a little bit longer to get to. I like to remind our staff all the time that the action step is like, instead of the dog bites man, it's the man bites dog. It's the, how do I get over that big hurdle? What's unusual? What is it that's going to happen in your plan that you haven't planned for? And how do you still make it flow? How can I still swim, but I just have to jump into a deeper pond? So that action step. And then we had to communicate. Again, if I just sent out a hard copy of a news release, I would probably get incredible coverage locally. But the strategy on ArtPrize was we wanted to bring the world in of art. So we actually went around to about 30 cities, sat down with art and education and entertainment editors, and explained the entire process one-on-one, from Cincinnati to Toronto, to Louisville, to anybody who could drive in a weekend. We visited that paper. We sent street team members out to art exhibits. So pre-ArtPrize, we were in Ann Arbor at the art show. We were in Columbus. We were in Chicago at ArtFest. And again, giving people information so they could cause and effect, they could understand, they could begin to relate and communicate in a two-way instead of just buying an ad, which we bought none of, and we're able to attract, ultimately, people from all over. Today, ArtPrize and other mediums, they really consistently use that same theory of understanding, not just putting it out there and hoping people get it, but how do I get people to influence people to get it? How do I help you in many ways understand that all of you are not the same? You all probably watched something different on television last night that influenced your life. And I am not trying to get you to buy a product. I'm trying to get you to relate to a feeling and experience a relationship with something. In the ArtPrize case, it was art. I'm going to go faster. I know you're getting mad at me. I'm going too slow. Okay, so I'm going to take you through this cycle again really quickly. And then I'm going to have Natasha put up a quick video for me. So the cycle is for research, who's the public, who do I want to talk to, action, what is it that I really want to influence them on, and how can I do that? Communicate. What are the tools? You know, am I going to use social? Am I going to print? Am I going to set up events? Am I going to stage something? What are the tools to communicate? And then probably the most important that we live in every day is evaluation. How will I measure success? Well, if I use ArtPrize as a client, as one experience that I would share with you, we had 1,600 artists from over 40 countries year one. So just think about that. It didn't happen from one story in one newspaper. The London Times actually probably did a bigger spread than the New York Times. And we helped mediums get the story. So we didn't just go talk to Cincinnati and hope the Inquirer would do a story. We helped Cincinnati realize that there were 11 artists from Cincinnati in that 1,600, and that's who they should be following. And we helped Belgium understand who came from Brussels. So again, your job doesn't start or stop at the beginning. You have to continue to manage those relationships and continue to manage the communication on all of that. Am I losing you, or are you with me? Okay. So I want to fast forward. Hang on one sec, Natasha. I want to fast forward to share with you, because Dan also mentioned to you something I'm passionate about. Although my day job at Seyferth PR, we do represent about 90 incredible Michigan companies, from the Perigo to the Huntington to the Blue Cross to the Trinity Health, many brands that I hope you know. But something that we are very passionate about is this idea of recruiting and retaining people in our state. I would share with you, as you probably are all aware of, is Michigan has been an exporter of talent for about the past 11 years. And something that I've been very engaged in is, how do we tell Michigan's story beyond pure Michigan? Which is, by the way, a brilliant campaign and has been incredibly successful around the globe. But what we've been working on is, how do we distinguish a city, and how does that become a model for a region to talk about itself when it is recruiting talent? And what we've tried to do is, again, let me go back to we built a resume for Grand Rapids to be a credible place to host ArtPrize before it was introduced. And one of the things that I'm going to share with you today is a video that we've done, and we actually used it. We did it with Storytelling Pictures, so they get credit for the production of this. And the goal of this effort was to get employers who are bringing people to look at our city as an opportunity to think about our city from a different way. Let me tell you, before this work that we've done, what people would say. If you were out marketing our city to a good recruit, you would say, great place to raise a family. Anybody ever heard of that before about Grand Rapids? Right? Okay. We have a lake. Lots of golf courses. They kind of ignored the weather. Lots of churches. Good culture, family values. Do you hear those things? And what we needed to do was not really ignore that, but I always say, who's the audience? Who's interested? Well, the average millennial really didn't care about all those things yet. They will later. But if I'm trying to attract you, that wasn't what was going to attract you. So no different than, it's really easy for me to build a crowd in Detroit when we're opening a Hopcat, and all I do is post out there, free crack fries. 2.5 mile long crowd waiting to get into Hopcat. Free crack fries. That's all we had to do. So again, the perception, the how do I catch you? So I want to show you this video, and then it is available to all of you if you ever want to use it when you're selling your city. Questions? No questions? Yes, Scott.
How involved in some of these things, we wish you would have gotten involved a lot earlier in a lot of them? That's a big question, but I mean, you get handed an idea and it's like, oh, I wish we could have done that. Is that
Not very. I mean, I think we're, you know, again, our job, just like we teach our clients, is to be just unbelievably involved in the communities that we serve. So I think what we're really good at is helping people, you know, bringing things together. I mean, can you bring design together with art and beer and place? I mean, we're really good at convening people for these kinds of things. But I think that what we try really hard to do, I mean, I guess I would give you an example right now. We really would like to someday get involved in the Flint mess. Because I think that Flint has a lot of major issues right now, but it has an incredible opportunity to be a much stronger city with its own resume once it comes out of it. So our team is already looking at, you know, what's the future? So I think we are very blessed to be on the backside of a lot of these ideas, and what we try to do is help you communicate them. But not in a paid sort of way, but in a relationship way, and managed communication and packaging of communication way. So I don't think there's anything that we miss, but you know, sometimes some of them we donate a lot of money to, so I don't mind if we don't do them all. It's okay, yes.
What advice would you give about balancing the time and effort it takes to establish those relationships with those connected to almost the immediacy of the pressure that given put the information out there and get the results? Relying on the digital channels versus the person one-on-one connections.
I think for long term you have to have both. I think that we can be tweeting today's story, but if I don't also come out and talk to you, it's not good for my brand. So it's got to be and. I never say or. It's always and. So my advice is you should know your community first, or know your publics first, and then communicate to them second. But no different than if somebody shows up at your front door and you don't know them, you don't invite them in. So I just need you, and really, your email is your front door a lot. I mean, how many people get rid of emails because they don't know who they're from? How many people throw out junk mail because they don't know who they're from? So you might not be able to know your whole universe, but I think it always has to be and. I think that great brands start with great relationships. And it doesn't mean that you have to maximize everything. You know, sometimes I think we go too fast, and I think we have to just do a little bit of and. So that's my 2 cents. It's not a great answer, because I'd like to tell you there's a Twitter solution, but I don't think there is. Others? Okay, well, thank you. Oh, I'm sorry, yes.
Can you discuss the relationship between crisis management and public relations?
Oh, yeah, I wish I could tell you more about our crisis management. Our job there is to keep you completely out of everything, not put you in. But it's the same theory. I mean, immediately when there is an issue, it is something, and often it's not a crisis, it's an issue that could become a crisis. But the second there is an issue, and we have a 24-hour hotline, 365 days a year, where, I mean, it's a huge part of our practice, where we have a human being that answers the phone all night long, represent a lot of hospitals, a lot of media relations management for clients after hours. And so if there's a shooting in your parking lot, or a criminal sexual conduct charge, within your organization, you have to go through the the same race theory that I went through. You know, you really have to know your stuff and then develop a plan of action and then communicate it and then constantly evaluate it. So same process that we go through. You know, I share all the time, you know, kind of one crisis story because it's very public that I can share that really needed the race theory. And I'll go really quick, but we received a call from a funeral home. Some of you are going to know this story, so I'll share it with you, that it was a very tough situation. They had a garbage company that came to pick up a box in the garage. You know the rest of the story? Anyone's nodding their head? And they picked up a body that was in the garage. And simultaneously, we happened to represent a company called Waste Management that owned the landfill where the truck took the box. Talk about an issue. So within a matter of hours, we were able to kind of get all of the players working together on this situation, as well as the, it wasn't in Kent County, but as well as the county that was responsible for why the person's body was being held in the first place, and really set up a positive communication channel so everybody knew all of the facts before they started communicating. And we were able to manage it very effectively. And so it went from chaos and could have gone into crisis, but it went into a very, very streamlined process to keep everybody, including the family, engaged in the process along the way. So if you use this theory, realistically, it ties into even the craziest of issues. Yes?
Any hints that you can give us on what we might expect in the next 3 to 5 years?
No, and I'm not taking Denver in the Super Bowl either. You know, I would share with you that our city as a region has matured unbelievably in understanding, as Dan mentioned earlier, programming and not just buildings. I think the sky's the limit. I think there's interest, you know, in the city to. I think Mayor Bliss understands this. I think a lot of our business leaders are willing to support things like a slide down Lion Street and a zombie walk and things that would just be absolute no before. I think we've gotten rid of the permission requesting that we used to need. You know, I think I would, if I were to tell you to watch, just watch what's going to happen in our river. And the removal of the, you know, you're going to see rapids again. I know you guys all thought you came to Grand Rapids because there were rapids, but there really aren't any rapids. They were strategically taken out in the lumber era time of our city. And so you're going to see about a $30 to $40 million remake of the Grand River in the next probably 5 to 7 years. And I think that will be a game changer for us as a city. You're going to be able to kayak and literally get in and out of the river in the downtown area that you can't do right now. I think that'll be an incredible what's next of the city.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how close are we to getting where we want to be to attract those bigger industries? You know, to look at Grand Rapids as an option.
Oh, I think the biggest challenge right now, if Doug Small were here, I think he would probably tell you is capacity. I mean, that's probably the biggest problem. I think we've done an incredible job of attracting interest to come. It's now, I mean, we have several hundred new hotel rooms coming on, I think in this next year or year and a half. I think that, you know, one of our challenges will be to manage growth, and probably the biggest challenge I think as a city we have right now is to do it equitably, to make sure that we have an inclusive strategy. I think this, you'll see Mayor Bliss focus on this, but I think many of the business leaders too, how do we do things equitably? How do we make sure that people can still afford to live downtown and live in the city and and the strength of neighborhoods. So that's got to happen. And we got to do a better job of that. I don't think we have enough people at the table yet. Yes?
But outside of social media, is there any data that we collect that defines the practice?
Oh, well, I mean, I think social media gives some really interesting analytics. But I think, you know, pre and post research all the time can give you brand trust scores that really help a company understand that if I listen to all of these audiences, this is what I get. You know, is anyone in here a member of the Public Relations Society? Okay, well, there are actual quantitative measures that you can get, other than, I'm not really big on, I mean, we do media evaluations, but to me that doesn't really cause an effect. We did an economic impact study of ArtPrize, and it shocked the city in terms of the number of conventioners, the other people that wanted to come. So I always say build in some ROI so you understand what it's worth. But often the best way to get an employer to pay attention is to, you know, do a small focus group and tape it on your phone and have them hear what their employees really think, to realize that they've got to invest more in that. And have them, you know, I think if employers understood that the employee tends to be the first brand ambassador for you. So if I don't like the donuts, no one's buying these donuts. And, you know, I'll share a story that we've been in the middle of because it's been an argument, and now that it's, again, public, it's pretty interesting. But we have represented several hundred McDonald's restaurants, and we're one of 3 firms in the country that has worked with McDonald's for more than 25 years. So bad coffee to McCafe, we've been there. Well, most recently, one of the challenges that we had was people wanting breakfast at different times. Marketing people are trying to figure out what we can do. Operations people, PR people were the ones who said, we have to listen to the customers and the employees. You gotta make those eggs at night. I realize it's an operations nightmare. I realize it doesn't fit into our marketing strategy, but all-day breakfast is one of the best business decisions that company has made in 20 years. So normally I have BR guest cards. I probably should have brought those today. But so listen, but we have to stop and listen. We can't just send. We have to receive. Got to be two-way. Got to listen. Any other? Okay, well, thank you, Pageworks, and thank you all. And please make sure to, if you want the video, it has 470,000 hits already, just so you know, and it's on about 127 company websites in Michigan right now, West Michigan. So you're more than welcome to use it. DDA has it as well. Thank you very much.